Good morning and welcome to the Small Business MBA week number 2 of our last one for the year. So hopefully if you're watching this live or watching the recording, that makes absolutely no difference like we've mentioned before. So look, let's get straight into it and see where we're up to. So this is our second week. So look, last week we all talked about developing your goal and developing your plan for your business. So, that would have entailed you going through the audit process and actually building that whole one-page plan template that you would have had. So if you haven't had a chance to complete that task, please make sure you do, because that's really the foundation for everything in which you're doing with your business. So it's critical to get that sort of completed so that you can actually continue to build on that as we go through this program. So make sure you get that done, send it through to me to have a look at, and we'll go from there. This week we're all talking about building a great team, and just checking. I might have had the wrong presentation up there. That's something weird was happening. All right, so look, so goal setting and one-page plans. I don't know what was going on. I was showing some old stuff. All right, so some examples of some goals, just from a couple of different ones, because look, the key with the goal was to make sure that your goal is SMART. So make sure that it's specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's realistic, and it's timely. So here's a couple that sort of come back in. By the end of the financial year, I'll be averaging X dollars in funding, 1 automotive lend, 1 financial planning recommendation per month, which will generate sales of excess of X dollars per income from the Canberra and surrounding area. So, that's probably a little bit wordy, but it is specific. It's measurable. You can measure whether you've got 1 lend, 1 automotive lend, and 1 financial planning recommendation per month. It's probably achievable based on those goals. It's realistic, and there's definitely some time restraints on it. So that's a good example. At X, which is the name of the business, in the next 24 months, we want to get a grasp on our debt, gain financial control, and turn over X dollars. Now, this one here, it's got the time. I would probably challenge, get a grasp on our debt and gain financial control. What does that really mean? Like, how do you measure getting a grasp? So that probably needs a little bit fine tuning. It's got a dollar target and a few other sort of targets. Similar ones. By the end of the financial year, we want to have X platinum partners and turn over X dollars. So it's got time, it's specific, it's measurable, it's probably realistic, and it's probably potentially achievable. So you get the idea. It's important to just review your goal and say, okay, well, can I pick out those 5 elements out of the sentence that I put there for my goal? Because if you can't, it's probably not something that's actually a SMART goal. When it comes to your one-page plan, I guess just look at your plan to say, well, do the priority actions that I've set, do they actually match the goal that I've picked for myself? So, if your goal is to drive revenue, are the priority aspects of your goal around activities that will drive revenue? So just use that as a bit of a sanity check, and that's what I'll do when I get your goal. I'll actually look at that and say, okay, well, look, you've said that your goal is to reduce your hours and travel the world as via your business as the vehicle, but your priorities are working. You've got all these tasks that are going to require all this time and all this commitment and all this effort, which therefore means you will be tied to your business. So it's just seeing whether there's a mismatch or not. And as I said, use this document to actually build on as you go through the program. So use it as a foundation block. And if there's things that come up that we talk about, write them on that page and add them somewhere into your business. If you go, well, yeah, actually, I need to put that into my business, so add them in. All right, now let's get into it. If now my presentation seems to be doing the right thing for me, and there's been some changes with the platform for Webinar Jam, and Google has done some funny things to them and changed the whole registration process. And it's my problem, I know, but it's causes lots of grief for people using this platform. There's a Facebook page that has a whole lot of complaints that people are having. People have been running paid webinars where people have to pay to register, and just it doesn't work, so there's been quite a lot of issues. So I guess my little technical issue last week was minor in comparison to some of the ones I've sort of had, but I'm a little bit paranoid sort of doing them until I get this glitch fixed. They've done a temporary fix, but it's, there's some issues going on there at the moment. But anyway, it's first world problems. So this is where we're at. So we've done our goal and our plan, and today we're talking about building a great team. Now, look, some of this may not be relevant for you if it's just you, but I'll sort of try and most of the people who are in this group are actually sort of just you, so I won't bore you too much with some of the stuff. But it's important to know these things, because as your business starts to grow, or if you start adding outsourced workers or something like that, some of these things are important to actually to be aware of. So I'll try and make this a little bit relevant as we go through it, and not cover too much time on the bits that may not be overly necessary for you. So what we're going to do, we're going to talk about the people process, look at job roles, look at performance management, and look at appraisals. So one of the things that and this is blatantly stolen from my past life in the corporate world, this was our mantra. It's people capability first, sales and profitability will follow. And a lot of businesses get it wrong. They try and chase the sales and expect to get profit and don't worry about having good people. That might work for the short term, but it's not a sustainable model. The truly sustainable and well-run businesses and organizations invest in their people. They train, they develop, they get the best people into their team. They may not be productive and deliver the results up front, but eventually, once they've got that capability, they'll start reaping the benefit from it and getting the increase in productivity and efficiency and everything like that, which will result in better turnover and better profit. So look, without a great team, it's just you. So team really helps you leverage your business and therefore helps you grow your business. What's a great team, I ask you? Okay, there's my great team. My great team is North Melbourne. Okay, so awesome. That was the last time I won a premiership back in '99. So we're hanging out there for that one to come. For anyone who's not AFL, too bad. Come on, look, seriously, they are pretty awesome. So I'm going to keep this slide in here until they win the next grand final. But look, seriously, bear with you on the sports or connection or connotation there. Look, a great team is great because they're a tight unit. They look out for each other. They work through the good and the bad times. They focus on their results. They give feedback. They receive feedback. They train hard and they sort of work to improve themselves. They always aim for that continuous improvement, and they recognise and reward each other. Give the pats on the back or the motivation to actually do it. So look, it sounds simple, but how do you do this for your business? Really it starts with, developing that whole culture, around sort of process and leadership, establishing the ground rules, recruiting for your fit, and then train for the skills, rather than training to try and find that ideal person for your business. Find someone who fits with your culture, someone who you see will fit into the organizational culture that you're trying to build for your business, and then you can teach them how to do the things. You can teach them the technical side of things. In most cases, there's obviously some specific jobs that require very technical skills that you have to train and practice in the real world rather than just throwing anyone in there. But you're not going to throw someone who's got a great cultural fit in and has never done anything before, but then all of a sudden they're a brain surgeon. So you're not going to do that, for example. So common sense, obviously. Be very clear with your job roles and expectations. Cast a positive shadow as the leader, and establish a performance management process, where you're setting targets, you're measuring and you're rewarding and managing that whole process, because a lot of small businesses just don't do that. What I mean by the leadership shadow, and again, this is one that we used to use all the time, especially when I was in the Middle East. And we used to use this in all the KFCs and Pizza Huts, and we used to run workshops and things on this. And you could probably run a half-day sort of session around the concepts behind this, but it's the concept of, you ask people what they see in that picture, and you say, well, there's someone standing there and there's sort of, different sorts of shadows. And then sort of, what does that mean? Well, it means that, the leader casts a shadow, and, people will probably follow that shadow. So it all comes back to you. You're on stage all the time. People watch what you do. So are you casting a positive leadership shadow? So are you casting that positive shadow in your business where, let's say you're in a retail sort of outlet, and there's all crap out the front of your shop as you come to work. If you walk in and just sort of step over the rubbish, open the door and walk inside, or there's customers there and you just walk straight through them and go at the back and have a coffee, staff notice that, and they will say, well, no, it's okay for Tony to do it. Well, maybe we can do that too. And it impacts on the whole culture. And if you looked at that picture again a bit further, you'll see that the shadow is not just behind him, but it's actually going beyond the door. And what the concept there means is that you want to be able to cast a positive shadow in your business that's not just for when you're around, that sort of people follow what you do, but when it's gone beyond the door. So when you're out of there and have left and have gone home, or gone to the bank or whatever it may be, that behaviour there, or that reflection that you're casting is actually followed by everybody, regardless of whether or not you're there. So there's a lot of powerful messages in that picture, and it's probably one to sort of make business owners or managers or leaders actually sort of sit back and reflect and say, well, okay, what sort of shadow am I casting in my business? How does it impact on the people in my business as well? Because it's pretty important. So while you can do your best to develop a culture, you still need to have a process around developing your people. So what do I mean by a process? Well, obviously, process is a series of actions or steps taken in order to achieve a particular end. And when we're looking at it in the context of the people process, it's defined as having a structured series of steps or actions to achieve, the end result of having better people. We want to make sure that we've got those better people. And look, an example of a process, the main thing is that you've actually sort of got a process for your business. And again, if it's just you, this is probably not as relevant. So I'll sort of go through this reasonably quickly. But a solid process sort of has a fully comprehensive, end-to-end flow, and also has guidelines and documented sort of policies and processes around it. So you'll start off with having your job role, which then helps you recruit, which then you can sort of start establishing KPIs from there. You build your performance management systems, and you're sort of rewarding. So you've got everything sort of structured as to how you're actually going to build that system into your business. And obviously, if you don't have a process, well, you can result in bad recruitment and poor job selection. So obviously a bit of bad recruitment here. Not quite the brain surgeon, but same thing. One of the reasons why a process is so important for you, especially in a small business, is the employment costs. And employee costs are usually the number one or number two cost when you look at your profitability of your business. So you can't afford not to have a process in place, and you have to know what your recruitment costs are. So by employment costs, I mean raw wage costs that hit your P&L. So if you're running your cost of goods and your cost of labour are usually your two biggest costs in your business. But there's a recruitment cost, which a lot of people don't have a recruitment cost line in their profit, in their P&L, because there's a lot of hidden costs that we sort of don't see. And this is an activity that I've done quite a few times with different businesses. And the things that actually appear here are things like advertising and agents. That's a direct cost you can probably show on your P&L. Your training time, there's a cost there. Errors or mistakes while they're training. You might have tools, uniforms, product wastage, etc. There's total time to get efficient. And all of these add up. And let me give you a real life example. And again, I'm going to refer back to my KFC time, because we did this activity with the managers. I think it was in Australia we did this, not overseas. But let's say you're recruiting a manager who you're going to pay $80,000 a year for. Okay, so you might go through an agent, and they might charge up to $10,000. To get a manager trained, it's probably a 1 to 2 month, and that's being generous, sort of training program. It usually takes longer than that. And so you've got to pay their wages throughout that time. So there's a physical cost there. It's just your cost of wages. You can't escape that. While they're training, they can potentially make a mistake depending on your business. That could be, a $1 cost, or it could be a $100,000 cost. If they break something major, it could be a massive cost to your business. So that's a bit of an unknown as to what that cost is. You might give them tools and uniforms, so let's say between $2,000 to $5,000. Now, in the case of a manager, it usually takes sort of 3 to 6 months to actually get them efficient. So they're not being productive during that time frame. So you're actually, more than likely, you're paying them, but also you probably have someone with them a lot of the time as well, especially during the training time. So that time is probably doubled. So you're spending a lot of time, because there might be 1.5 people doing the job of 2 people. Sorry, 1.5 people doing the job of 1 person. So that cost is still an indirect cost of the business. But how do you report that? How does that show up on the profit and loss statement? It's pretty hard. So potentially an employment cost for a manager is something between, could be 40 grand upwards. The upwards is unknown. And it's important to know, and it can be and is, costing businesses a lot to poorly recruit. And it's a hidden cost, as I said, that rarely appears. Now, an example of this is knowing what that cost is and, knowing how that impacts on your business. And the other part of that is your turnover, because I'll explain how the two are connected. So if you're in a business that's, it's a retail-y sort of business, or a trade or something that you've got a lot of staff turnover, turnover can also have a massive impact on your business. So you have to know what your turnover percentage is for your people and work this out as a cost. So the good old formula for turnover is that. So turnover equals S divided by B plus E divided by 2, which, what's that mean? That means T is our turnover rate. S is the number of people separated, which, left, resigned, terminated, missing in action, whatever it may be. B is our beginning staff at a period of time, and E is our ending staff. So let's say we had 5 staff at the end of the month and 10 at the end and 8 left. So we plug those numbers in. So we had 5 at the start plus 10 is 15, divided by 2 is 8 divided by 7.5, which gives us 106% turnover for that period. Now, why is that important? That's important because that number there, that 106%, you can then use that to plan for recruitment needs. That that's what your trends are, and you track it on a monthly basis, and how your recruitment's and turnover is actually going. If that number's high, that's a massive cost. So let's say you've got 100, that's your turnover rate, and you know that your average turnover person is going to cost you $39,000. We can start saying, well, holy crap, I'm spending a lot of money on my staff that's hidden somewhere. To give you this in perspective, like 20 years ago, I was managing a KFC store in Swanston Street in Melbourne, a CBD store. I was doing 100 grand a year, a week or something like that in turnover, in sales. We had, 60 staff or something. Our turnover rate there was about 280%, which means we're turning over our staff. So we had 60 staff, so we were turning over 2.8 times those each year. So that meant we had to have a massive recruitment program in place to keep them going. So every Friday I was just booked out for interviews, and it was just interview, train, and wait to see who's going to go next. Reason being, being in the city, you had a lot of transient workers. We had a lot of, it's hard to get to the city. A lot of issues with security and all those sorts of things. So, it was a cost of doing business, and we knew that each person that left, was probably about a $5,000 minimum sort of cost, and we'd usually lose uniforms, and we'd probably lose cash and all those other things. So, it's a critical part to know. So, without a process, this is all part of developing your people process, knowing your numbers, knowing what actually happens. Sorry, that was sipping my coffee. Which brings us on to job roles, because if we know that our turnover is costing things, we need to actually start recruiting. We need to actually have some sort of job role and job process in place so that we can start building a system for our business. All right, so who should have a job role document? Well, really, it should be everybody, really. That's the most important thing. But where do you start? If you've got no job roles in your business, and you're probably saying, well, it's just me, I don't need a job role. Well, you're probably right, but you probably could have some basic sort of functions that you need to be doing so that you're not sort of fluffing around and wasting time doing things that you don't do. There might be things that you do and things that you decide to outsource or get somebody else to come in and actually do. So if you've got a business where you need job roles because you've got staff and things, the easiest way to start is make a list of all the jobs that you have for your business. So you might have the customer service person, you might have the cleaner, you might have the cook, you might have the production manager, you might have all these different roles that you've got. Just list them. So see what you've actually got. Even if it's a role that you don't have a person for, you think, really, I'd love to have a marketing manager, or I'd love to have a HR manager, or I'd love to have a training person, or I've gone blank on job roles. Can't tell me that long since I've had a job. I can't remember what the all roles are. I'd love to have some sort of sales rep who goes out and sells my services. So think about those. Now, as I said, some of those roles might be filled by the same person, and guess what? If it's just you, probably all those roles are filled by you. So, because we wear many hats as a solo small business owner. Include jobs for outsource people. So just make a list of the things like your bookkeeper, your accountant, your brand manager, your marketing manager, all those sorts of things. So because it's there something that probably still needs a little bit of structure, and we'll come back to that. So how do you sort of do it? So very quickly, and again, I'm not going to go into the detailed read all this, but basically, once you've listed the jobs, get people who, if you've already got a team, get the people who are currently sort of doing that job or managing that job to actually, form a bit of a brain sort of storm session, and sort of, see what tasks they feel that job should have covered. So sort of make a list of, start building the old long list and get as much information as you can. So do an analysis. So perform a job analysis to actually find out, well, what is the job? Write a bit of if you were to explain that job in a paragraph, what would it be? Then start listing, what the responsibilities are, and start sort of looking at, well, what would be the basic tasks that that job should be doing? So what's the primary tasks? What's the secondary tasks? So what's the things that are critical for that job, and what's the things that they can be doing as additional tasks? And honestly, this is one of those things that, when I've done this for businesses, apart from having a chat and finding out the role, the very second step I'd go to is I'd jump on Google and start searching, sample job description for a builder. Job description for a marketer, and then it gives you a whole list of skill sets and actual specific tasks, and you can start using that and pick and gather and add and whatever, and start building it from there. So you got to get all the information, because as much information as more. The more information that you get, the easier it will be to actually develop that role. And then you sort of start using a format and have a template to actually write the job description. And there's a sample of one that I'll send out to you in the email with this. And it's very, very basic, but pick a format that suits for your business and just use that for every single job role that you have. Make sure you've got consistency. So look, basic components of a job description. You've got an overall position description, for general areas of responsibility and who they report to. You've got the essential functions with a couple of examples. You might have then you might have additional functions. You've got the required knowledge, skills, and abilities, education, description of the physical demands, and description of the work environment. And there's an example of one in the email that comes out. But this is a very basic one that I designed for one of my clients a while ago. So it's an energy efficiency advisor, locations Canberra, reporting to supervisors, liaises with, general role description, and then we go into the specifics as we move down that. I said that sample is in the email that will come out to you, and also an example of that template. So once you've got the job description in place, obviously test and measure. So review it. So maybe as it's an initial process being put into the business, you could use this as a part of the employee review. We actually review the role as well as the sort of thing, get feedback on the role from the manager or whoever's overseeing that role, to make sure it's actually reflecting what they're doing and what the expectations you have with them. And you use this as a basis for any employee development plans or anything like that as you get into the review periods, which we'll quickly cover off shortly. So look, hiring really is, I think that's I can't remember where this quote came from, but it's really, one of the most important sort of steps to, the organization's success, because it all fits into that mantra of, your people capability first, sales and profit will follow. You've got to get the right people, and to get the right people, you've got to have a process around it. So you've got to, I'm recruiting, if you're doing interviews for people and people say, what's the job? If you've got something you can physically show them, well, the job is this, and here's the roles and the tasks and the responsibilities and everything like that, you can use that to filter out a lot of the crap applicants and everything as well in the first place. So when it comes to performance management, really this is like, you've got the people in place and you want to actually start managing how they're actually, how they're doing, basically. So really it comes around, a bit of a circular sort of process of, sort of planning, reviewing, and sort of, a progress review, and then the final review, and then you replan and reset. So it's basically a circular process. So you start off at the initial start of the cycle, which might be at the start of the year or start of the financial year or calendar year, and you start agreeing on, well, what do we need to achieve? What's the standards or the expectations? What are the competencies we're sort of trying to get them done? And is there any development or training needed for that person? And you develop a plan for them, and set some goals, some KPIs, something that's, here's your targets for the year, from a people perspective. Well, obviously from a job perspective, it's completing these tasks, it's achieving these results, it's getting this done. And it should be sort of tied in with the business goals. So if the business goals is to grow, and I'm in a sales role, well, obviously I'd have some expectation to be growing my sales as well. And then after a period of time, whether it's quarterly, half yearly, annually, at a minimum you should be doing them half yearly. But worst case, if it was once a year, well, it's better than none. Ideal would be every quarter. So you just got to have a process that works for your particular business. And that's where you sit down with the employee and sort of review, well, how are we going versus the targets? What do I need to do to improve? Does anything need to change? Do we have any gaps in the, in either the capability or the ability to actually do the task? Do we need additional support, et cetera, et cetera? And then at the end of the cycle, that's when you do the final review. Like, your goal was to achieve X, you achieved X plus 3, so you've done well in that. Or you haven't quite made there, so what do we need to do differently, and what have you learned, and what would you do if you were given this target again? And then you'll set that at that same meeting there, you'll start setting the process again for the following year. So it's an ongoing cycle that sort of goes around. I should have pressed that button first. So as I said, this is just to summarize what I've just told you. So very quickly, at the start of the year, define the goals, get commitment and alignment with them, set the expectations, work out, offer to see how you can help, because your role is to coach and support, and then advise on how you're going to measure it and how you're going to track it. At mid-year, same thing. So you get feedback on performance, feedback on the gaps, and as well as successes. If there's anything needs to change, or if they're dramatically behind or got some major performance issues, you might develop a personal sort of improvement plan to give some additional sort of support and expectations, especially if you've got someone who's underperforming. You might set some short-term goals that may have consequences if they don't actually achieve them. Establish how you can help and support, and advise again when it's going to be reviewed. And then at the end of the year, review it all, review your personal plan if you had one, and then seek implementations and commitments for the plan and the goals for the following year. And it really comes down to, what gets measured gets done, what gets rewarded gets repeated. So if they're achieving their goals, you'd have some sort of incentive program there. So part of that is developing that whole performance appraisal. So performance appraisal, the performance management, especially the outline of the process. Appraisals are the sort of physical sitting down and having that chat. So operate very much the same as the process that I just mentioned. So very similar and probably integrated in, but it's the formal and informal process of giving feedback or appraisals sort of throughout the year. And really, if you're having a formal sit-down performance appraisal, which is based on that mid-year cycle or the end-of-year cycle, there shouldn't be any surprises there as an employee, or an employer. If I know that I'm kicking butt with my targets and I'm running a great team and got everything like that, when I come down to sit to talk to my business owner or my boss, I probably have a pretty strong awareness of that. If I know I'm not doing very well, I've probably also got a pretty strong awareness of that. So the feedback throughout the year should be ongoing, and the actual appraisal meeting shouldn't be any sort of surprise where you're digging up, you did this and this and this and this and this and this. Those discussions should have happened as they occurred. They should be immediate. And I use this analogy of don't kick the dog. And think about you going out to work in the morning and your dog runs up to the fence and you sort of see him sat there, and you walk out and notice he's dug a 6 foot, great big massive hole and dug up all your plants in your garden as you're driving off, and you think, you little turd, wait till I get home, I'll get you. And the dog's, dogs being dogs. And then you go to work and you come home and dog runs out to you, licking and barking and yelping and ready to, hasn't seen anybody all day, so he's so excited to see you. And the first thing you do is go up and kick him, and he's going, well, what's that for? Because the dog's got no idea there's no consequence to his action. He's done something in the morning, whole day's passed, and he's surprised and taken aback and says, oh, well, what have I done? So don't kick the dog with your stuff. Make sure if there's something he's done it needs to be done better, tell them. If they do something very good, tell them. Works both ways. So appraisals are very similar to the, as I said, part of the whole performance management process. So it's defining the expectations, measuring and evaluate, give the feedback, and the different part here is you're actually recording the performance, okay, and you're documenting that whole process a little bit. So don't do this. Don't criticize people in public. So it's it's praise in public and and give feedback in private. Is sort of the obviously the role models as sort of do. You don't sort of get there and tear someone to shreds in front of the staff and the customers and everything like that. One way to document the process is setting annual goals, and this can be where you set those targets. So you're setting those expectations. They should be set for the business and also personally, and review them throughout the year. And I've got an example that you'll get in the email that comes out, sort of based on one that that I've sort of used for the last sort of 15, 20 years or something in my career, and it's a corporate sort of template. But really, so you set the goals at the start of the year, and then you review it throughout the year, and you're discussing those actions and what you've done to get there or why you've missed out on it, and again, developing that whole personal plan. So this is an example, and it will be a little bit bigger in the thing, but this is like a one that I had when I was overseas, and this is a real one. I just think I've taken some of the numbers out of it, but it's basically all your areas that you're going to be tracked and measured on down here in different categories, and there's sales, there's leadership, there's some execution that's on sales, that's customer information, that's stuff on people development and team. So the team targets are like the business targets, so for the whole business. So we had a performance management process where any bonuses were sort of it was weighted between the company performance and your own individual performance, and there was a multiplier. So if the company didn't do too well, the company rating might, let's say the company missed all its targets, there might be a 0.5 weighting or 0.1 weighting or something like that. But if you've done very well yourself, you might got a rating of 5, well, the 2 would multiply out to give you a bonus number. Whereas if you do well and the company does well, so let's say you get a 3 or a 4 and the company gets a 3 or a 4, well, your multiple sort of goes out a lot more. So you've got to be rewarded personally, but also for there's no point if the company's missing all its targets and the employees are, shouldn't be rewarded and getting the benefits there in too much context, because it's important to. Sorry about that. It's important to make sure that you actually, the company can't afford to do things. You have to actually, not pay bonuses out to people. Sorry, I lost my line of thought there. My parents ringing me. All right, so let me explain how that works. So just a bit of a zoom up on that. So you'll see, so there's, and again, a lot of these are jargony terms based on the way they work, but you have your sales target for the year. You have your sales growth. So, the sales were 634 million with a 4% sales increase. And there's a profit target and there was there's a mystery shopper scores and targets that we sort of had. That's some technical equipment implementations. So there's delivery stuff that we sort of had to do. So some specific targets for different people. And again, those were different audits and different results that we had. So, and the person responsible. So it could be an individual one, or it could be a team, it could be shared, it could be whatever. So we had those there to review. As I said, there's an example of that, and you would notice that there's a quarter 1, a quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. So at the end of quarter 1, I would go and put in my results here and see how and see whether I'm on target to achieve the overall result that we had for the year, and that would be a part of the discussion. And if there was a reason for getting or for missing or whatever it may be, that would how we'd actually do it. So these were scheduled, how they were actually physically done. These were scheduled at the start of the year. We knew the dates, we knew when they were coming. There was no surprises. And basically, the goals are set at the start of the year, and I would actually go and put my information in and give my put my actual numbers in before the meeting. I would write out my review on sort of, what I think my strengths and my opportunities would be before the meeting. I'd give them to my boss. and then they would sort of do a similar sort of process, and we'd agree on a ranking, whether it's significantly below target, below target, on target, above target, or significantly above target, and that would be how it would be rated. So there was no surprises going in there. So we knew if we're having a bad year, we probably had that discussion with our boss before, and we certainly didn't walk in there trembling, knowing that we're going to get our heads sort of sliced off and mounted on the wall like Santa Claus with his reindeers. So that's really sort of how the whole appraisal sort of process works. It's a process that has to be in place, especially if you've got people. I guess to put this in context with your business, if it's just you, I would say you still need to set business goals, but that's probably not so much around the people context, but you'll have your business goals, and guess what? It's you that has to be achieving those goals. So your goals would come out, similar to the sort of the work we did last week. You might have set sales targets or set, monthly targets that you're trying to achieve. And if it's just you in your business, well, you're not going to sit down and have a review with yourself. But having said that, you need to actually review that performance. So, well, actually, am I on track, or have I lost the plot a little bit? Because it's important to actually, to be on that sort of target and know where you're heading. The one thing I would do, and I don't think I came back to it, but when you're doing those tasks, if it's just you, just know what your core areas of responsibility are, and maybe make a bit of a job role based on the template that you get sent out to you for yourself. So what is your role? If you were to replace yourself, what would it be? What would your role be? What would you be recruiting for? Would you be recruiting for a manager, a trainer, or a salesperson? What's your main function in your business? And if you've got people doing things like bookkeeping and accounting and stuff like that, make sure there's agreement and clarity on what it is they're doing for you. So I do encourage people, especially for accountants, to actually do a bit of a position sort of statement or a role statement on what you want them to do. And it might be monthly reporting to be all completed by the 7 days after the end of the month, and to send out a profit and loss, a balance sheet, a cash flow statement, list of payments due in, payments due out. So just set those expectations so that when you do engage someone as an outside sort of consultant, it's very clear from both sides as to what the deliverables are. And then you've got something you can go back to use when you're managing that person as well, or if there's an issue with the performance. All right, so people, homework. Good news. Hopefully, I think you'll find this homework's a lot easier, unless you haven't done last week's, and then you got 2 to do. So look, basically what I want you to do is just identify, what in your business needs a job role. Okay, so just from that whole listing, I want you to create a job role for yourself. Okay, and then if you have staff, keep working on that and go through the whole sort of process of getting other people done. But if it's just you, that's going to be your homework. So just sort of list the things that, in the ideal world, what would you have a job role for? And again, it's a little bit, just list them. So if it's just you working and, you're pretty much wearing every hat, but if you were to have people doing some of the things in your business, what would be the next hire that you would actually have in your business? So if you're going to add somebody, let's say you're given, $50,000 to add your first team member, what would that person be? And then sort of go through and develop a bit of a role for yourself. That is it. The template will be sent out with the recording. There's also that sample one that I sort of showed. There's also a sample letter of offer that I've sort of used with some clients as well. And that's sort of important. If you are hiring, you've got the job role, and then you'll have the letter of offer with all the terms and conditions and different things like that. Now, the one that's in there, don't just blatantly copy and paste and use it, because it's got a couple of different options in there. It's got like, a full-time person with a casual or part-time sort of option as well. So, just look at it, because if you were to use that, you'd need to add your own, sort of terms and different things in there. There's also a sample appraisal sort of template in there as well, just in case you want to have a look at that. If you can't understand any of those, just let me know. So next week, we're talking about attracting better clients. So we're looking at, a little bit about, very top line, what's marketing, and so what do I think marketing is. We'll look at how to identify your target market, spend a bit of work on that, and we'll then sort of start looking at, some of your message on, are you talking benefits or are you talking features? And then we'll just touch on social media, and do you need to include that into your plans, and how do you include that into your business? So it's starting to get into some of the fun stuff, and I think that is it. So have a lovely day, evening, or whatever it may be, and we will be back on again next week. So I'll see you then. Bye.